Hello and welcome to another episode of the DigiTeacher Digest. Last week I had a chat with two members of the Cognitive Education Department at Redeem School in Johannesburg, South Africa, and we talked a little bit about cognitive tools. Cognitive tools, to my mind anyway, are little pedagogical aids, little routines which are designed to enhance and encourage certain types of thinking. And obviously, as a teacher, you need to match the tool with the type of thinking that you want to encourage at that particular moment. So today what I want to look at is really how do you handle the interface between these cognitive tools, most of which are designed to be used face-to-face in a classroom, with a more hybrid or online situation that many of us have had to face over the last few months. So here's an example. Teaching the Merchant of Venice, and many of you will be familiar with the Cornell note-taking method, where you have little sketches and things, you take down notes, and then at the end you give a summary of what you've been taking notes, or your takeaway from the lecture session or whatever it is. So I decided to combine this with the thinking hats, De Bono's thinking hats. The thinking hats are designed to encourage parallel thinking. So to get a whole team to think in parallel. So for example, the red hat is all about your feelings. So it's an opportunity for the whole meeting, everyone in the team, to express their feelings about something. The white hat is about the facts. So it's a time to collect all the data and put the facts together. The yellow hat is about strengths, and the black hat about weaknesses, and so on. And so it's designed to assist people to think about particular aspects or to think about a problem in a particular way. So I put this together with Google Docs. So these days, obviously, our school has moved to Microsoft platform away from Google, but you can use either. So you can open a Word document, which all students have access to and collaborate on. By the way, this use of Google Docs for collaborative writing is a huge strength. You can have a document for each group looking at an issue, and then they can share and they can edit in real time, see each other's writing and be able to comment on it, edit it, change it. So it's a fantastic way of getting groups to collaborate. But here what I've done by combining the Cornell note-taking format and the hats. So for example, they're thinking about what do they feel about that character? What is their kind of gut reaction to the character? What is he like? And what does it make them feel? Then what do you know about Antonio? Facts about him. For example, the student has written that he's depressed. This one has written that he's a merchant, and so on. What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? And then a summary of his character. And you can add different characters and have different groups, for example, looking at different characters. So you have 3 or 4 students in a group, each looking at a different character and thinking in parallel about these aspects of the character, giving a summary at the end. And then the document can be opened up to the whole class to benefit from the work done by individual teams on particular characters. It's a great way of bringing a play together and looking at character and doing a character analysis. And the digital platform, using a Google Doc, allows students to work together on the project, whether they are working online, whether they are even face-to-face. They can be working in groups and then recording their thoughts on a document, which can then be shared with the whole group. So you can use it in a flipped format as well, that maybe students are doing this for homework, and then when they get to class, you have a look at the results and you discuss what has been put down about each character, and it becomes grist to the mill for a face-to-face online discussion, or obviously an online discussion. So this is one way of taking a cognitive tool, which isn't meant to be digital, and using it on a digital platform to benefit from some of the affordances of that platform. So Google Docs allow collaboration, encourage collaboration in a way which many face-to-face formats don't. when you're doing writing, for example. A student is writing on a piece of paper, and it's fairly difficult to share that with other members of the group so that they can all read it and comment and edit. That's a much more lengthy process than if you're doing it in a Google Doc. Here's another example. So one of the Harvard thinking routines, visible thinking routines, is Connect, Extend, Challenge. And it's designed to help students to connect what they already know and extend that prior learning to figure out how they can solve a problem. So this one is in my robotics classes, and I'm using a Gigglebot robot, and the whole idea is that they're going to be getting the robot to go through a maze. And I want them to take what they've already learned about commands for driving a robot. In this case, I think making a square, repeating 4 times, going forwards and turning to the right. So if they know how to make a square with the robot, can they extend that knowledge into tackling the maze? So what I did, this was in the height of lockdown, so it was very difficult to do anything in a classroom. Normally I would be going around and looking at what students are doing, helping them out. I'm able to see what their thinking is at any point. Now, when they're online, it's very difficult to see what they're thinking. So a Harvard visible thinking routine becomes a must here. If I set up a Google Doc, then I can set up this form, showing them some code, showing them the challenge. There's the microbit classroom where they can go and code what they're doing. But I'm asking them just to fill in this quick Connect, Extend challenge so that they think about what they already know and then extend that to try and solve the problem. So it's saying, look at the code from what you know, what you think the robot will do. So if you look at this and the student has written it's going to move forward, turn 90 degrees, 4 times, returning to its original position. So they don't say it'll make a square, but that's kind of implicit. They seem to have understood the concept. So they've started linking what they already know. Now the routine extends that. If you wanted the robot to follow the maze, what commands would you need to use? So they've got to think about, it's got to go forward, it's got to take in sensing obstacles, and it's got to turn to, the student says, got to turn to the right, and then it's got to repeat that until the maze is solved. Well, that would certainly help the student begin to unpack the challenge. And then just to think about some of the challenges that they would need to overcome. So the student has written that the time that it travels is uncertain. This would need to be tested for a more accurate command set. In other words, you're going to have to engineer it a bit. You're going to have to test it in a maze and then adjust your code, which is quite a mature insight, I think, at this point for a grade 8 student. So using the Google Doc to bring together the cognitive tools of Connect, Extend, Challenge, what it really did for me during a period of online learning was it allowed me to see student thinking. If I look at this, I can gain some insight into what the student is thinking, and I can time my interventions, which face-to-face, if you're walking around a room and you can see them coding, or you can question them and they can answer, ask questions, etc., a lot more feedback is possible. Online, that's way more difficult in a Teams meeting, Google Hangout, or whatever it is. So using this method to try and make their thinking visible so that I know where I have to step in, make a comment, for example, get hold of the student, say, have you thought about maybe doing it this way, it is a real help. And a lot of the cognitive tools are all about allowing us to see what a student is thinking, not only to help a student think in certain ways, but also to see how they're thinking, to be able to give adequate feedback. I hope that these 2 examples have been useful to you when thinking about how to put together the cognitive tools that you might be using, the thinking maps, the thinking hats, any of the Harvard visible thinking routines, and being able to digitize them, especially for periods when we're working online, but also in the hybrid classroom. They can be very useful in a flipped environment. For me, it was totally revolutionary. It happened in a kind of flash, a moment of inspiration. I had been using cognitive tools like the Harvard visible thinking routines, thinking maps, and so on. I had been using computers in the classroom, digital tools, but I hadn't really connected the two. And when I did, it opened up a whole new area of work in the classroom that I could do to try and help students to think critically, to think better, to be more focused in their tasks. So I want to end the broadcast this week with another example. I just can't help myself. So far I've looked at Google Docs, and Google Docs are very powerful because they allow collaborative writing. But another very powerful tool is video, to get the students to use something like Flipgrid, for example, just to record a short video, or they can just record it on their phones and upload a video. And you can use a routine like plus minus interesting, for example, and just get every student to just go away and do a quick plus minus interesting. What did they find that was a strength or an advantage? What did they find was a weakness or a disadvantage about whatever it is you've been looking at? And then what did they find interesting? And it's just a quick feedback tool, which I think focuses their minds on a takeaway, allows them to reflect on what they've been talking about and have a takeaway from the lesson. And it's something that you can then use for further discussion if you wish. So I'll see you next time on the DigiTeacher Digest. If you enjoy these videos, please click like, share, subscribe, and hit that darn bell.